A closer look at Jin Ping Mei Chapter 73, Love Brain Pan Jinlian. Among Lord Ximon's wives and concubines, Pan Jinlian was the smartest, and Pan Jinlian was the most jealous and provocative. Such a woman is born to live in the center of the storm. Just like this time, she was the one who started the trouble. This is the day before Meng Yula's birthday. At this time, as usual, Pan Jinlian only had Ximon King in her eyes. It could also be said that she only had male lust and lust. Pan Jinlian thought about making a white silk belt with Ximon King. Even when she walked into the room, took the sewing box, and on a piece of white silk, the tincture of the trembling elixir in the magnetic box was placed inside, and the surrounding stitches were very finely sewn with an inverted needle, in preparation for the evening celebration with Ximon. It is rare to read a bit of tenderness and infatuation in this text. To use today's buzzwords, Xiao Pan is an out-and-out love brain, the kind who puts all his energy and thoughts on men. The enthusiastic Ansu took the opportunity to wish Pan Jinlian a birthday and brought her a fertility charm. Xiao Pan lived very hard in the Ximon mansion. He wanted to have a child. He wanted to have someone to support him in the future. And he missed Ximon. King only had eyes for her, and refused to relax even a little bit. Unlike Xiao Pan's fiery and forceful attitude, others were indifferent. At noon after the appointment, Yunyang placed a table in the Kang room and invited all the guests and the 3 girls to sit on it. He also placed the 8 immortals table in the bright room, covered with a brazier, and placed wine on the table to celebrate his birthday with Meng Yu upstairs. After a while, the wine was filled with wine, and the jade cup was held high. Meng Yulu, dressed in pink makeup and jade, first handed the wine to Ximon King, then greeted the sisters and sat down at the table. Yunyang just puts a table, and the protagonist Meng Yulu, although pink up and beautiful, just sits on the table, and everything seems to be calm. But at this moment, who can understand Lord Ximon's thoughts? He thought of Li Ping'er again. Unconsciously, I remembered that last year I had sisterly on my birthday in Yulu. Today, I have 5 wives and concubines, but he is missing. I couldn't help but feel sad in my heart and shed tears in my eyes. Isn't it a bit like the flowers are the same every year, but the people are different every year? However, Lord Ximon's passionate drama is far from over, because it was Meng Yula's birthday. Wu Yunyang, the first wife, was very good at being a good person and asked Li Ming and the 2 little girls to sing a song called Weddings. However, Mr. Ximon, who was immersed in longing, completely ignored this peace and tranquility was so pleasant that he called him closer and said, "You sing a set of Yi Kua Shao, and I'll listen." So, the 2 young actors quickly changed the tune and sang Ji's Yanbin. I remember playing the flute. Where is the beauty? I have to say that the author writes the relationship between Li Ping'er and Ximon King with warmth. When writing about Ximon King's longing, he always unconsciously adds scenes of infatuation for him. This piece of music directly uses the lingering meaning of Du Mu's 24 Bridges on a Moonlit Night. Where can the beauty teach me to play the flute? The lovesickness, the helplessness, the pain, and the sadness have almost never been seen before. Ximon King had such intentions with the second woman. Therefore, Pan Jinlian broke out all of a sudden. Her style, her charm, her ability to sing and dance, and her sharp tongue. What can be compared to Li Ping'er? In her eyes, Li Ping'er is nothing more than a lowbrow and submissive person. Why can he firmly occupy this man's heart? What's even more frightening is that not only was she crushed by Li Ping'er when she was alive, but she had already gone to another world. Why could she still stay in this man's heart? Her anger surged in waves. Finally, when she sang "He Took Off My Hunan Skirt and Bled the Azaleas," Pan Jinlian burst out. At the banquet, he deliberately put his hands on his face to embarrass him a little bit, and said, "My child, there Zhu Baji is walking and sitting in the cold bunk. You are so ugly, a post-married wife. She's not a daughter. Why are you asking for blood on azaleas?" What a shameless businessman. After Ximon King denied it, the 2 young actors sang again. A prime minister has a young girl in his house, and suddenly he stabs her and throws her away. How could I be willing to follow the evil and break off the wallflowers? Ximon King just lowered his head and listened carefully. After singing for a moment, Pan Jinlian was no longer angry with him, and the two just started bickering at the table. Her serial questioning was filled with annoyance and reluctance. The reason why it was elevated to the level of quarrel was because of a hint of resentment at being humiliated. Because she understood Simon King's thoughts, and because Li Ping'er died at the right time. She had risen to the level of holiness in Simon King's mind. From blood on the azaleas and Hunan's skirt to the Prime Minister's house is pregnant with a spring girl, all contain the promotion and infatuation for Li Ping'er. And as smart as Xiao Pan, I'm afraid he also heard some hidden meanings in this Simon mansion, except for himself, who came from a lowly background and passed through the hands of Wuhan University. Other women seem to have some strong points that they can use, now even the dead Li Ping. My son has overtaken her. How much more noble is she than him? Not only did she marry Hua Zixu, but she also married Zhang Zhushan. How could she be so highly regarded? That's what Xiao Pan is like. If he has any grievances or dissatisfaction, he will express it directly and never hold back any of it. And the harsh words he spoke were accurate and precise. This time it was, Jin Lian said, on the day when Huang Naiguan was invited. You didn't say it to Yinger and Wenmanzi. No wonder your wife is dead. That's right. It wasn't a big deal when he was here. Tomorrow, I can help another one up and fight with him. A thief has no shame to spread his roots, said Simon King, who was anxious, jumped up, and hurriedly kicked with his boots. He and the woman grabbed the door and ran away. Faced with Simon King's unusual long-lasting love at the birthday party, compared with Pan Jinlian's firecrackers, do other women feel calm? Of course not, in fact. Isn't Meng Yulu, the protagonist of this birthday party, the one who should be angry the most? Simon King ordered music at his birthday party and missed another woman. Isn't this a blatant lack of care for oneself? However, Meng Yulu still maintained her usual elegance. In fact, I think the author has a preference for Yulu. He can hardly see the bad side of Yulu. Simon King also has some respect for Yulu. This woman who everywhere she walks is filled with the fragrance of flowers, and when she sits down is overwhelmed with beauty, is the only character in this book who has a good death. Faced with Xiao Pan's outrageous anger, her reaction was still very appropriate. Good grandma, if it were me, who would blame him for singing? I, the sixth sister, have always known the taste of the song. I saw that Sister Li, who praised me to death, was not as good as the ancient one. How could the two of them have such a close friendship? We swore to each other that you would be for me, and I would be for you. This prisoner was not convinced, so he only used words to rob him of his love, and the whole relationship was chaotic for half a day. This is the cleverness of Yulu. In the double gap between the principal wife Wu Yunyang and the troublemaker Pan Jinlian, she walked out of a calm path. If it were me, who would blame him? I don't care. Let him go. What kind of love is this worth bothering about? In Yulu, I actually saw a bit of the grace of Bao Chai in A Dream of Red Mansions. Wu Yunyang's strength as the principal wife was also clearly demonstrated at this birthday party. Wu Yunyang felt equally uncomfortable in the scene where Simon King was overly affectionate towards Li Ping'er. But unlike Yulu, she spoke like a mistress of the house. Next, Da Jinzi said, "So fast." Duanqi after that. This has come 100 days earlier. Miss Young asked, "When is the 100th day?" Yunyang said, "It's early. It's the 26th of the 12th lunar month." And Wang said, "It is necessary to recite a sutra." Yunyang said, "Since the new year is approaching, what kind of sutra should I recite?" His father has no choice but to recite it during the new year. This statement quite shows sovereignty. The voiceover is, "What does the 100-day sacrifice of your concubine Li Ping'er mean? I won't let you recite sutras during the New Year holidays." Moreover, she also had an extremely low opinion of Xiao Pan, who would like to have such a smart, beautiful and charming little fairy next to their husband. Not only could she understand Simon Qingdian's music, but she also understood its connotation. Her interpretation was sound and well-founded, and Master Simon could not argue with it. When Yunyang heard Miss Young praising Pan Jinlian for being so smart, she said coldly and disdainfully, "What kind of music doesn't he know? This is a class that Pan Jinlian cannot cross. No matter how you jump round, The whole Ximen mansion will know that you were sold to Wang Zhaoshuan mansion. You were originally a maid, and you were forced to learn martial arts. Your eye sense no smart kung fu was developed by crawling in the mud swamp for a long time. Therefore, Pan Jinlian did not have any confidence to marry into the Ximen mansion. Apart from using her so-called beauty to trip up Ximen King's heart, she had no other weapons available. When she asks for love day by day but doesn't get it, it accumulates into clouds of toxins and spills them on the people around her who are weaker than her. Previously, Yinger was suspected of stealing steamed dumplings, but this time she punished Qiu Ju for deliberately stealing oranges. How much could these things be worth? Behind the scenes, it's all for the sake of love. That time when I personally made soup, I waited impatiently for him to finally come to nothing. This time, the banquet was messy, but it was still hard to stop the man's excessive love. However, the fierceness cannot cover up the anxiety, desolation and exhaustion in the heart. Behind the cruelty to the weaker ones, the unwillingness and resentment are the eternal main reasons. To a certain extent, she does not care about wealth or money. She only cares about the release of lust, and only wants a man's heart. But when it comes to getting love, there is always a gap. Like Yulu and Pinger, they were born in the Roman city of love, but Golden Lotus, riding a horse and whipping, still couldn't catch up. After all, they lacked the constraints of wealth and popularity. Look at the ending of this episode. We are lying on the bed with our pillows, not knowing how wide the East is. The famous line from Red Cliff Ode is used as a joke, and it actually has a sentiment of sleeping soundly together, which really fits Xiao Pan's character. Anyway, this love-minded woman finally died for love. A few days later, her brother-in-law, whom she had been attracted to, said he wanted to marry her and come home, but she still happily believed him. So, she finally died humbly in front of the man she had been attracted to. At that moment, all her viciousness seemed to be redeemed by her innocence about love. Sigh for her. A closer look at Chapter 74 of Jin Ping Mei. There is a pivot in the mountain, talking about Li Pinger's leather jacket. A mountain has a pivot, and a mountain has an elm. If you have clothes, you can't drag them with you. I have chariots and horses, and they are not driven at all. Even if he is dead, others will be happy. It comes from the book of Songstang Fengshen Yaoshu, which means thorny elm grows on the hillside, and white elm grows at the head of the depression. You have beautiful clothes, but if you don't wear them, they will become old and new. You have a tall chariot and a fine horse, and you can't figure it out without riding it. One day you die suddenly, others will be happy to enjoy it. Today's jokes say women should be kind to themselves. Otherwise, when you die, your new wife will live in your house, drive your car, and beat your children. Li Pinger has been reincarnated, but Ximen King has been trying hard to keep her alive and is not allowed to lose her property and her girl. However, time heals everything, and the pain of losing a loved one finally faded away from Ximen King. Living in the present is a normal human instinct. Massive memories of the new life wash over the brain, and the deceased will eventually be forced into a small corner in the mind. What's more, Ximen King often lets his instincts surpass his rationality, using the joy of his lower body to cover up his nostalgia and guilt for the deceased. Everything Li Pinger left behind has been coveted by others. Men can kill local tycoons to divide their fields, and Pan Jinlian can also kill and spoil his concubines to divide his property. They had the same temperament and had fun in bed. In just a few nights, Pan Jinlian returned to her position as the #1 concubine. The two of them were so in love last night that they didn't know how wide the East was, and they continued to have fun the next morning. When they got to the critical point while playing the flute, Pan Jinlian said, "Take out Sister Li's leather jacket and wear it with me." Ximen King resisted in his heart. Unlike before, he agreed immediately. "If there is a leather jacket from Wang Zhaoshuan's mansion, you can wear it." Pan Jinlian was not greedy for money, but this time, she wanted Li Pinger's mink fur jacket worth 60 taels. Only by wearing the exclusive luxury goods of her wealthy generals can she announce to the world that she is the winner with the last laugh. Only if Ximen King is willing to give it can she prove that the person in front of her is better than the dead Li Pinger. Pan Jinlian insisted, give me sisterly's fur coat. And wait until I wear it with two bright red golden crane sleeves and a white silk coat. Pan Jinlian always had to do her best to please Simon Kingo in bed before she could ask for anything. Readers often feel aggrieved and sad for her. The ants in A Dream of Red Mansions don't have to be like this. As long as you abide by the rules and don't get sent out of the house, there will be separate rules for food, clothing, pocket money, etc., and they will be distributed when the day comes. However, Pan Jinlian clearly enjoyed asking for it personally. When they are physically entangled, she can always make her and Simon King an equal couple. After Simon King refused for the first time, Pan Jinlian said sternly, "I'm just going to be my wife with you. Never with anyone else." After being rejected for the second time, Pan Jinlian said angrily, "It's weird, slave. You are having sex with Zhang San and Li Si's wives. There are your wives on the left and right, putting on a front for you, and none of them can be so arrogant. Okay, well, I won't follow you anymore." Pan Jinlian's competitiveness is wrapped in coquettishness, which is the most exciting and can inspire Simon King's love and fighting spirit. The interaction between the two was actually full of love between husband and wife, full of mutual conquest and mutual satisfaction. Simon King said, "You are asking for help and being tough at the same time." The woman said, "You weirdo, I am the girl in your room. Am I going to be subdued in front of you?" Did you see that Pan Jinlian never thought of herself as a girl? She confidently believed that she should be superior to others in everything. Simon King Zhang likes her spicy energy, which can always inspire men's desire to conquer. When he put her down, he heard her mouthing "my daughter" and saw her body limp and warmed up, which made Simon King feel a great sense of accomplishment. Wang Liu also made Simon King extremely comfortable, but that was the comfort of being served. Enjoying the same scenery, being carried to the top of the mountain and climbing to the top of the mountain with high morale. The happiness of the former is too shallow after all, while the joy of the latter is dripping with joy. It is not only Pan Jinlian who covets Li Ping'er's leather jacket, but also Yu Yair. When Simon King asked Li Ping'er's girl Yingxun to ask Wu Yunyang for the key and leather coat, Ryer then asked, "What are you asking for?" Simon King said, "I want to find a fur coat for your fifth mother to wear." Rui said, "Is it mother's mink fur coat?" It can be seen that Ryer is also thinking about this mink fur coat. But how could she fight with Simon King's real concubine? A few days ago, she was deliberately stepped on by Pan Jinlian. After Yingxun left, Simon King's hand stuck to Rui's body. Rui said that Pan Jinlian would not tolerate her. Dad was not here the day before yesterday, so he had a big shouting match with me because of a stick. Thanks to Han's sister-in-law and Sanyang's persuasion, when my father came home, I didn't dare to tell him. Some talkative person told him that my father wanted me. Did he come to sue his father? Simon King probably learned a lesson from Song Huilian's death and finally got it right. Clear the wives and concubines, and order them. Wives, concubines, maids, and prostitutes must not violate the law. Knowing that it must be Pan Jinlian who seduced the person first, he said, "You can just pay him a courtesy tomorrow. He may be very aggressive, but he doesn't really have any intentions." He also coaxed Ryer, "You wait for me to come and sleep in this room every night." Rui was overjoyed to receive this favor. She had no hope of getting a mink fur coat and could get something else. So she took the opportunity to say, "I don't have a good coat, find something and give it to me. If you have some clothes for me, please give me another one." Simon King quickly found another set of green-covered satin jacket, yellow cotton silk skirt, another pair of blue silk cotton trousers, and another pair of embellished knee-length trouser legs, and gave them to him. Death is like a lamp going out, even if the emotions during life are to the point where your heart is broken and you fall asleep every night. They cannot withstand the passage of time. Simon King personally organized Li Ping'er's funeral and will eventually let her take her final bow. The three people who covet Li Ping'er's leather jacket are not only Pan Jinlian and Ryer, but also Wu Yunyang. When Yingxun asked Wu Yunyang for the key, Wu Yunyang asked, "What does your father want the key for?" Yingxun said she didn't know. Wu Yunyang was speechless. In the novel, Wu Yunyang is speechless because she has dissatisfaction suppressed in her heart. when Ximeng King returned the key to Yunyang. He learned that Pan Jinlian had snatched Li Ping'er's mink fur coat. Yunyang glanced at Ximeng King and said, "He is dead, and the angry people have scattered the girls in his room. If you are like you have nothing to say." Zhang Jubo's eyes were sharp, and he commented, "If Ping'er dies, Yunyang will use his property to move into the upper room. Ximeng King will make up for it as much as he wants." Men from wealthy families give their wives and concubines nothing more than social status, wealth, sex, and emotions. Wu Yunyang is extremely lacking in love and sex. And what can make up for it is wealth. So Wu Yunyang is extremely greedy for money. When Li Ping'er was not married to Ximeng King, she sent a large amount of property to Ximen's house and kept it all in Wu Yunyang's upper room. When Li Ping'er died, Wu Yunyang never mentioned returning it. As soon as Ximeng King died, Wu Yunyang wiped out Li Ping'er's small remaining property. This leather jacket was snatched away by Pan Jinlian without sight. The plot of the novel will change from the fight between Jinli and Ping'er to the fight between Jinli and Yunyang, a leather jacket, all kinds of thoughts. Wu Yunyang seems to be the most peaceful, but is actually the most greedy. Pan Jinlian is trying to win a breath. Ryer bowed his head and admitted defeat. Ximeng King finally faced reality and began to get familiar with the life without Li Ping'er. The wives and concubines in front of him were what mattered. After all, Ping'er can only go for 100 days. See, Ryer and Pan Jinlian had a quarrel because of a stick. The war was started by Pan Jinlian, so naturally she was the first to complain. When Ximeng King came to her room, he scolded Ryer as much as he wanted, but Ximeng King just said, "There are 7 or 8 people there who dare to contradict you. If you are too good at it, he will pass, but if you are low-handed, he will not be able to get through." Ximeng King said that he went to Li Ping'er's house to keep vigil for him. Pan Jinlian sneered and said, "A person has been dead for 100 days, so why should he keep vigil? There is no vigil in that house. The one who belongs to the rice warehouse shakes his body in the middle of the night. The girl heard a good banging sound in the middle of the night." Pan Jinlian's language is genius. It is harsh and vivid, and it is also full of sexual titillation and excitement. Ximeng King didn't have the strength to fight back, so he had to lift the guy and attack him violently until Pan Jinlian surrendered. But Ximeng King is not worried about this, so Ryer gave Pan Jinlian a mink fur coat. Ryer was a man who knew how to screw things up, so he bowed to Pan Jinlian and said, "Father awarded me with the silk clothes to wear during the new year. He asked me to kowtow to my mother, so he kowtowed for times forward." Pan Jinlian said, very satisfied, "Since your master loves you, as the saying goes, if there are many ships, it will not block the harbor, and if there are many cars, it will not block the road. How about being a bad person? You just don't offend me. What do I care about you? I have another one here. Yinger." Pan Jinlian likes evenly matched opponents. It's really boring to be able to destroy the opponent's martial arts with 3 strikes, 5 strikes, and 2 strikes. Li Ping'er is dead, and the real opponent is Wu Yunyang. What kind of onion is Ryer? It's good to have multiple companions. Rui was also smart, and immediately expressed his intention to surrender. "My mother is gone, although the eldest daughter behind me takes over the responsibility. She is still the master in the front. I hope she will be promoted sooner or later. How dare I deceive my little daughter-in-law? Where is the place where Yi Luo returns to her roots?" The 2 sides shook hands and made peace. Wu Ryer and Pan Jinlian are fine. Sister Li Gui also came to sue for peace with 4 exquisite gifts. She finally suffered from inexperience. Next to Wang Zhaoxuan's son, Wang Sangwan, he seems to be even more glorious. Little did he know that this benefactor's wife could not be offended, and she almost went to jail. Little did he know that the palace was reduced to a flower stand, and even the fur coats had to be pawned for money. Who would have thought that the 2 colleagues were enemies, and due to Zheng Aiyu's manipulations, Ximeng King became her godfather to Wang Sangwan? The plot turned around too quickly. It's really unacceptable. Wu Yunyang, who is seeking small profits, keeps talking for Sister Li Gui. Sister Li Gui is no longer as smart as before. She gives gifts, swears, cheats, and finally gets through. Sister Li Gui probably also knew that just before she entered, The congratulatory gift from Wang Sangwan to Ximon King had just arrived. Except for Li Ping'er, everything is back on track and better than before. The censor of the Song dynasty, who had been difficult to deal with in the past, was so happy this time that he wanted to use the residence of Ximon King's family to pay farewell to the governor, Mr. Hu Shiquan, for his promotion. Ximon King agreed wholeheartedly, collected the paltry 12 taels of silver from his colleagues, and prepared to host a banquet costing 1,000 taels. The official investment is staggering. At this time, the Ximon family was not only wealthy, but also had a flourishing collection of calligraphy and painting cultural relics, as well as various rare treasures. In front of the screen, there was a golden tripod with 8 immortals holding their birthdays. It was about several feet high, and was very well made. Kit Kat, sandalwood incense was burning in the furnace, and smoke was exhaled from the mouths of turtles, cranes, and deer. Song Yashi praised him endlessly. Later, Ximon King packaged the golden tripod and gave it to him. Not just anyone can accept praise from those in power. Magistrate Kai, Yashi of the Song dynasty, Lang Zhong'en, Uniquang of the brick factory. And Ximon King only ate until the sun went down and sent away the guests. Xu Kaiwen continued to eat and chat with the count at his home. The years are so quiet. It seems to have always been so quiet. Where will Ximon King sleep tonight? He promised to go to Rui's place, and Rui was waiting. According to the rules, he should have gone to Meng Yulu's birthday party. Wu Yunyang mistakenly thought that her husband should come to her, so she sent second sister Shen, sister Li Gui, and sister Yu to Li Zhao's room. And Pan Jinlian thinks that since you keep saying that you have me, you should naturally come to my room. Ximon King cannot be divided into 8 petals. He simply acted randomly when he was drunk. He was going to go to Li Ping'er's place as promised, but when he saw Pan Jinlian standing at the door to stop him, he went to Pan Jinlian's place. Since Ximon King came back from Tokyo, he has basically stayed at Pan Jinlian. Wu Yunyang was not too jealous of Li Ping'er in the past, because Li Ping'er was non-arguable and good-tempered, and brought a lot of blessings to Ximon's family. She had no trouble pretending to be virtuous and generous. But why is Pan Jinlian, not to mention being strong and domineering? Wu Yunyang has been paying special attention to Wu Yunyang recently. Today, if Ximon King doesn't go to Meng Yulu's place, he should naturally come to his own room. At that time, she will ask Ximon King to go to Meng Yulu's place to send favors, win over Meng Yulu, and isolate Pan Jinlian. However, unexpectedly, Ximon King doted on Pan Jinlian to the point where he had no one else. Wu Yunyang was really angry. Look at this thief with no background. I said he came into your room today, but why did he find his way into his room again without knowing it? In the past 2 days, the storm has started again, and he only lingered in front of him. Meng Yulu saw Ximon King clearly, and he also saw his destiny clearly. He said calmly, "Sister, let him go. It's like we fight for him every time, whatever his father wants. You and I can control him. For a capable woman, love is very good. It's okay if you don't have it." So, everyone gathered in Wu Yunyang's room, including Da Qzi, Sister Li Gui, second sister Shen, Sister Yu, Li Jiar, Meng Yulu and others, and listened to Anzu's talk about Huang's women's scroll. Unparalleled fame is nothing more than a big dream field. Wealth is astonishing, and the word impermanence is unavoidable. This is seeing his building collapse. It is where are the generals and ministers in ancient and modern times. And the weeds have disappeared. Listen to the sutra. Enjoy Meng Yulu's refined fruits and vegetables. Wine, tea, Yunyang's for boxes of kataku cakes and candies. And then listen to Sister Li Gui, second sister Shen, and Sister Yu taking turns singing. What song did Wu Yunyang, a devout Buddhist, want to listen to? She ordered deeper quietness. This set of music has been recorded in the Chihua book. There are 4 lyrics, including a few lines. The deeper silence makes the quilt smoke. Look at the moonlight. When the flowers are a little bit, it is all quiet and there is no consumption. I'm mad and helpless. I haven't seen you back for 2 or 3 nights. Hua Ji Liu Shi, you are in love with bees and butterflies. You make me hear jade and ice clear, and your place sweet melons and persimmons. I just came back without wine and half pretending to be drunk. Just doing grass and frightening snakes to find some romantic sin. This is probably called fireworks in the world. Good wine and delicious food. The official lady watching the singing girl lightly relaxing on the jade bamboo shoots, wearing the crocodile silk, hearing about being frustrated in love. Listening to Ansu talking about the four phantoms are like bubbles, all the things in these contradictions are in harmony. It is, the future is dark and the road is dangerous, and I am fascinated by the 12 o'clock. A closer look at chapter 75 of Jin Ping Mei. If there are too many women in the backyard, there will eventually be a fire. The poems that return to the past in Jin Ping Mei are basically full of eroticism. This time is no exception. However, the last two lines, Mo Dao's beauty is too ill-fated, and the oriole crows every time it cries. There is a kind of sadness in it. Only new people laugh. Who can hear the old people cry? It had only been 3 months since Li Ping'er passed away, but it seemed like a long, long time ago. Simon King still misses her, although the sadness has faded a lot. Naturally, his way of longing was also Xiamen style, so he soon got together with Ryer, who was interested in hooking up with him. Another person in Xiamen Mansion who was thinking about Li Ping'er was Pan Jinlian. What she was thinking about was not Li Ping'er's people, but the leather jacket she left behind that Pan Jinlian had coveted for a long time. Some people say that Pan Jinlian has integrity and is not greedy for money. When he asked for money, he asked Xiamen King generously, unlike Li Jiar, who was stingy and greedy for money. That's right. She's not as unbearable as Li Jiao. She doesn't steal or rob. She just wants it, but this is obviously necessary, but most of the time it doesn't come to the fore. For example, if she asked for a leather jacket this time, Xiamen King would not agree to give it to her, for Yu King. It was Li Ping'er's relic. Logically speaking, this leather jacket was too gorgeous and expensive, and it was very inappropriate for her, a fifth-born wife, to wear it. But Pan Jinlian's bottomless operation made Xiamen King happy, and Xiamen King, who was most sensual, took it upon himself to give her the leather jacket. What's more, it's not necessarily true that she's not greedy or stingy at all. She had been in charge of accounts for a while, and the scales were very tight, which made her servants complain. She also watched Grandma Pan get off the sedan chair, but did not pay her for the sedan chair. Of course, there are deep reasons behind this, but it does mean that she is not a very generous person. When she discovered that Xiamen King and Li Ping'er were having an affair, she was furious. But when Xiamen King gave her 2 of Li Ping'er's palace-style hairpins, she immediately turned from anger to joy and was willing to facilitate their affair. After Li Ping'er entered the house, she took advantage of her and took advantage of her money many times, overtly and covertly. Now that Li Ping'er is dead, he has left behind a wealth of gold, silver and clothing. Naturally, the gold and silver money will not fall into her hands, but there is still hope for trying hard with a leather jacket. Of course, Pan Jinlian is not a miser, otherwise she would not have been penniless when she was finally kicked out. But she is by no means very magnanimous and not worthy of praise. If she must be praised, it only means that there is really nothing else to praise about her. She got the leather jacket as she wished, but this also ignited Wu Yunyang's anger. In the Xiamen backyard, even the superficial harmony is difficult to maintain. As far as Pan Jinlian is concerned, the reason why she dared to become more and more blatant was because after Li Ping'er's death, she regained Xiamen King's favor. The relationship between the two people seemed to have undergone subtle changes. Xiamen King had beaten and scolded Pan Jinlian many times before. Now, no matter what Pan Jinlian said, even if it was verbose or rude, he would listen obediently. Xiamen King, after pestering him for a long time, the woman snatched the silver holder from him and said, "If you want it, take this stolen thing." Xiamen King said, "It's fine with me." One sleeve was tied up, and he staggered out. The woman said, "Come here. Let me ask you, are you sleeping in the same bed with him forever? It makes those 2 girls feel ashamed. They just slept there for no reason, and then let him sleep in another place." Xiamen King said, "Who will sleep with him forever?" After saying that, he laughed. The woman called back again and said, "Come here, I will pay you." "Why are you panicking?" Simon King said. What did you say again? The woman said, I allow you to sleep with him as long as you want, but you are not allowed to talk to him. It's nothing but idle talk to make him deceive and bold in front of us. If I find out tomorrow, you will not come into my house, and I will bite off your lower body, Simon King said. It's strange that you are a little whore, you are so trivial. When all the way over there, entering the room, there is an image of Li Pinger hanging on the wall, and under the wall is Li Pinger as stand-in. The reason why he fell in love with Ryer was not only because he was not picky about food, but also because Ryer had the intention to do so. Another reason was that Ryer had white and tender skin like Li Pinger. Ryer doesn't mind being Li Pinger as substitute at all. Ryer is a very scheming woman and knows how to please Simon King, which is evident from the way she hooks up with Simon King step by step. And maybe because she witnessed the whole process of Guanjir, from birth to death, and Li Pinger's death from prosperity, and knew Pan Jinlian's role in it. She was extremely wary of Pan Jinlian. Simon King stood in front of him and talked openly, or covertly. Last time, she said that Pan Jinlian deliberately caused trouble for her. This time, when Simon King praised her skin as fair as Li Pinger, she said that Pan Jinlian was not fair. This is Pan Jinlian's pain, and it is another place where she cannot compare to Li Pinger. If she knew what Ryer said about her, the consequences would be really disastrous. Ryer smiled and said, Dad, I can't tell you, Mom is still fair. I see that although Wu Niang is good-looking, her skin is average, red and white, not as fair as the and Sanyang behind her. Sanyang, it's just a few more pockmarks. But Miss Su is pretty and fair. 9 out of 10 women who sleep with Simon King, including those outside the family, do it for his money. And Ryer is no exception. It's just that she does have more scheming than other women. If Simon King survives, given time, there may be many exciting rivalry scenes between her and Pan Jinlian. Ryer added, I have something to say to Dad. Sister Yingchun wants to give it to me. She wants to give it to me. She wants to give it to me. She wants to ask Dad for the golden red tiger that her mother-in-law often wears. She wears it in the first month. Dad will give it to him, Simon King said. You don't have it on the front. When I asked the silversmith to get the gold and make another one for you, your mother's head box has been taken to the back. How can you ask him for it? The wife said. Forget it. You can buy another red tiger for me. As he walked down, he kowtowed. Ryer added, this girdle waist was still with me when my mother was alive. Simon King said, my dear, don't worry about it. Go to tomorrow's shop, take half a red piece, make it into a small coat, wear it and wait for me. My wife said, it's good to know. You see, she got all the jewelry and clothing materials without saying a word. At this time, Simon King really showed some pity for her. Simon King saw him lying on his back on the bed, stripped naked. Fearing that it would freeze him, so he took his tube top and covered his chest. Pan Jinlian seemed to have never received such consideration from him. But he didn't pay much attention to her after all. I asked her name and age last time, and I asked her again this time. I wonder if she will ask her again next time. At this time, Simon King was already feeling weak, but the exchanges of courtesy and greetings in the officialdom were getting denser. It seemed that he was trying to use up the few days left. Consider it 2 days. What's more, after several years of drilling, the money sent out is as high as the mountains, and now it is finally the season to receive goods. Someone started giving him gifts. When Simon King saw the words 2,000 stones of white rice written on it, he said, how can it be so? This student would never dare to accept it. How can we treat people like this? Jingdu's supervisor said. Otherwise, Siquin will not accept it and transfer it to others. Song Gong is also an ordinary person, so how can he be so rejected? If he doesn't accept it, my younger brother will not dare to desecrate him. After repeated pushing and giving, Simon King had no choice but to give in. Simon King is busy in the front yard, and the women in the backyard are not idle either. They have their own world, and there is never a shortage of fighting spirit in the makeup team. Pan Jinlian had caught Yu Xiao having an affair with a painting boy before. She was afraid that Pan Jinlian would report her, so she had to follow Pan Jinlian's instructions and often tell her about Wu Yunyang's troubles. Wu Yunyang had become increasingly dissatisfied with Pan Jinlian in the past few days. So Yu Xiao told her everything Wu Yunyang said about Pan Jinlian trying to stop men from asking for fur coats. She felt aggrieved. Although Simon King was pulled into the room by her, he was cut off by Ryer. How could she bear Wu Yunyang's wrongful accusation against her? But she didn't dare to go to Wu Yunyang to argue, and asked her to dress up and go out with Wu Yunyang and other female relatives, and she had to pack up obediently and go out. The masters were not at home, so the girls and wives became the masters of the house. They had a great time eating, drinking, chatting, and listening to music. Ryer also invited Chunmai, but Chunmai never regarded herself as one of them, so she had to do something to show her difference. Last time it was Li Ming who was targeted, this time it was second sister Shen. The common feature between these two people is that they are both people in the entertainment industry. At that time, a person who was sold as a girl probably had only a slightly higher status than a person who sang songs and operas. What's more, Chunmai also had Pan Jinlian and Simon King as backstage. And she was used to being arrogant, so she dared to send Chunhong to ask Sister Shen to sing for her. Second Sister Shen didn't come, so she went over by herself and cursed, without caring that Wu Dogweezy and others were present at the time. Poor blind Second Sister Shen, where has she ever experienced such a powerful thing? Unable to wait for Wu Yunyang to come home, she left crying. There is another reason why Chunmai is looking for bad luck on her, which is the same as the reason she was looking for bad luck on Li Ming last time. Li Ming is Li Zhao's brother and Li Guiji's uncle. Li Guiji is Pan Jinlian's enemy. Chunmai takes the opportunity to vent her anger on Pan Jinlian. Second sister Shen belonged to Wang Liuer's family, and Wang Liuer was the other one who stole Pan Jinlian's favor. Naturally, Chunmai would not let her go. After Wu Yunyang came back, she knew the cause and effect and wanted to punish Chunmai, but Pan Jinlian and Simon Qingdu protected her. Yunyang said, "You are here and can talk. Are you like this? Good people and bad people will eat him and scold him? Don't have anything to do with him." Jin Lian said, "Why don't you beat him for the blind whore?" How many sticks? After Yunyang heard what he said, he turned red with anger and said, "If you spoil him, I'll scold him all over tomorrow." Then he got up and walked past Simon King's house. "Come by," Simon King asked. "What's the matter?" Yunyang said, "I know who it is. The eldest sister in your family who has good rules scolded the second sister Shen for doing this." Simon King said with a smile, "Who taught him not to sing and let him listen to it? It's normal to ask the boy to give him a tael of silver tomorrow to make him happy." Yu Xiao said, "Second sister Shen's box is still here. I haven't taken it away." When Yunyang saw Simon King smile, she said, "If you don't preach, I will yell at him a few words, but you still keep your mouth shut." "I don't know what you are laughing at." Oddly enough, Simon King respects and cares for Chunmai in a way that no one else does. No matter what she says, he listens to her, but he lets her do whatever she does. One after another, Wu Yunyang's anger almost reached the top of her head. But Pan Jinlian was still sitting there, waiting for Simon King to go into her room. Even on normal days, Wu Yunyang would not be happy to come to the eldest wife's house to snatch a man. No one will be happy. Wu Yunyang today would never let Simon King pass. But it was not appropriate for her to keep Simon King by herself, as it seemed like she was competing with a concubine for a man. Meng Yulu happened to be unwell, so Wu Yunyang sent Simon King to Meng Yulu's house. Recently, Simon King has been a little more affectionate than before. After hearing this, he stopped drinking and got up to go to Meng Yulu's room. Seeing Meng Yulu vomiting and moaning, Simon King called out, my heart in one mouthful, touching his chest, pinching his bones, and looking for medicine. But he didn't mind Meng Yulu's words. Yulu had just vomited, so he hugged her neck and kissed her. Meng Yulu's performance today is also different from the past, and his words are a bit like Pan Jinlian's aggressiveness. People who are sick always feel wronged in their hearts. She has indeed suffered a lot of neglect at ordinary times, and now she is suffering from a real or false illness. Or perhaps, this time it was not the author's original writing but someone else's rewriting. which is also unknown. Because Meng Yulu is really different this time. Look at these words of Meng Yulu. The woman said, "Bring it here and wait for me to eat it myself." Who is waiting for Qiao Yuan to work hard and steam the hot food to sell it? Who is here to fight for you? The sun is setting in the west today. So, why don't you come into my house? Come and take a walk. There is also this ant who, just for nothing, fights for Huo Guli Baoqi. Simon King defended himself by saying that he was busy and had no time to spare. Meng Yulu still refused to give up. The woman said, "I know you are not idle, and your beloved is dragging you down. We, who are out of the ordinary, are all assigned to superfluous names to listen to the questions. In the next 10 years, keep it in your heart." Seeing Simon King licking his fragrant cheek, he said, "You can't get rid of the smell of wine from eating. Whoever tastes yellow soup and spicy water in a day, what kind of thoughts are there to bother you too?" Simon King was not annoyed and wanted to take food to eat with Meng Yulu. Meng Yulu was still angry. "You have nothing to say," the woman said. "People are in terrible pain here, and let's eat. If you want to eat, you can eat it at home." The woman said, "I can't scold him. So what disease do you think you have? If you want wine, I have wine in this house." Simon King was still smiling and wanted to take medicine and sleep with Meng Yulu. Meng Yulu rejected him unceremoniously. Simon King happily stopped taking medicine and just lay with her, hugging her and touching her chest. However, if Simon King sleeps until dawn with a woman in his arms, then he is not Simon King. From the perspective of modern medicine, Simon King is probably ill. Just like alcohol and drug addiction, he is a sex addict. Drinking and taking drugs can cause death. Simon King's lack of restraint can only lead to the underworld early. Pan Jinlian was already 100 and happy for not being able to keep Simon King on the day designated by Ansu. But Yu Xiao came and learned Wu Yunyang's words of praise and criticism to her word for word. Xiao Pan finally couldn't bear it anymore, had a head-on conflict with Wu Yunyang. Their exchange of words was truly wonderful. Pan Jinlian has always had sharp teeth and spitted poisonous lotus flowers. It is surprising that the stupid Wu Yunyang is so eloquent. It's a pity that Simon King was not there and did not see this good show. After he returned home, when he heard about this, he hurried to the upper room to see Wu Yunyang. Wu Yunyang is the legitimate wife. Pan Jinlian and others should have committed hundreds of crimes. What's more, Wu Yunyang is pregnant now. This is her only flesh and blood, which makes Simon King panic even more. During Simon King's short life, he was diligent in farming and often stayed up all night. But his output was extremely limited. His first wife Chen gave birth to an eldest sister. Li Pinger gave birth to a sick and prone official brother who was 1 year old. The first pregnancy was miscarried. This was her second pregnancy and Simon King's only hope for an heir so far, so he had to be nervous. He followed Wu Yunyang and scolded her as a little whore thousands of times and treated Pan Jinlian like shit. After going to Qiao's house to have a drink, he still came back to stay with Wu Yunyang. Wu Yunyang's anger gradually subsided, and she talked to him about everyday things and official affairs. However, the gap between him and Pan Jinlian has been forged since then, and it will be difficult to eliminate. Xiao Pan just wanted to talk fast for a while, but he will eventually pay the price for it. A closer look at Chapter 76 of Jin Ping Mei. Everyone uses the pig hair rope. The wives and concubines were quarreling. Wu Yunyang was angry, and Pan Jinlian was acting aggressively. They all accused the other party of using pig hair ropes to tie Simon King's gang. After the quarrel, it must come to an end. Simon King was supposed to be here to take care of this situation, but he was not there. Even if there was a pig's hair rope present, I would have no choice but to wrap it round my neck and turn my head. It is indeed difficult for him. On one side is his pregnant wife, and on the other side, not only does he have a beloved concubine, but there is also a maid with a heart as high as the sky and an anger level comparable to that of the Hulk. Lin Daiyu said that Bao Yu, I have a sister in my heart, but I forget about my sister just after I see her. Simon King does not forget her sister, and my wife and children all want her. This is much more difficult than Bao Yu. It would be easy to calm down the quarrel between Yunyang and Jinlian. If Yunyang took on the identity of the head wife and used family methods to fight. Not to mention that Pan Jinlian could only suffer it. No matter how distressed Simon King was, it actually didn't matter. What can I do? But by doing this, hatred was really forged. Not only with Pan Jinlian, but also with Simon King, and with all the concubines in this house. Killing 1,000 enemies and wounding oneself 800, Yunyang knew that she couldn't do this, but it's not good to just leave it alone. If Pan Jinlian makes such a fuss, the authority of the leader will be gone, the people will be dispersed, the team will be difficult to lead. And the Ximen family's good situation of stability and unity will be destroyed. Therefore, someone must come out and do the work. Fortunately, there is Meng Yulu, and it can only be Meng Yulu. Meng Yulu is a character who has authority but is not competitive, has a bottom line but is happy-go-lucky, has a good sense of proportion, and has strong communication skills. Pan Jinlian comes forward with brute strength, defies the sky and the earth, and is convinced by Meng Yulu. Not only is she convinced, but she also has a harmonious and tacit understanding of the relationship. Old comrades like Yunyang trust her, and new comrades like Pan Jinlian like her. If she doesn't come out, who will? Come out, come out. It's actually not easy to say. The problem is not with Yunyang. She is the leader. When someone comes to kowtow and apologize, she just needs to be given a ladder and she will come down. The difficulty lies with Jinlian. The difficulty lies with Yunyang's angry words that only she is the first wife. This sentence is the truth. The truth. Only in this way can it hurt people. Hit 3 or 4 people with one stick. Everyone has a face, and every tree has a bark, but there is no blood on my face every time. How to advise? Meng Yulu's method is not to talk about right and wrong, but only about interests. Although she talked a lot, the core was just one sentence. Otherwise, it will be difficult if you don't teach Dad a little bit. When he wants to come to you, he will be annoyed. This is also true. Yunyang really wants to fight Simon King with her big belly and stop Simon King from going to find Pan Jinlian. Simon King really has no good solution. Not to mention the difference in legal status. Even if he only thinks about the difficulties for his heirs, Simon King did not dare to be careless. Failure to give in will result in real emotional losses and, in turn, loss of profits. It's just one breath. Why bother? Why bother? Meng Yulu's words were just like a pig's hair rope, which pulled Jinlian to kowtow in front of Yunyang and admit her mistake. A few words from Jinlian Chamai also made Simon King unable to resist. Everyone has a pig hair rope round their neck. They just don't know it. Simon King's rope was held by his wives, concubines, and officials. He also had a bunch of ropes in his hands, holding a bunch of people. The most fatal thing was when Shu Kai, the rope round his neck was tightly knotted. When Shu Kai was introduced to Simon King by Jia Tixing and received good treatment, but he cheated and betrayed secrets to Jia Tixing, which almost caused Simon King to lose his official position. You could say he was loyal, but Jia Tixing didn't take him away. You could say he was profit-seeking. According to Jia Tixing's economic conditions, his offer was only 3 melons and 2 dates, which was probably not as good as what Simon King gave him, points to salary. While betraying Simon King, he was eating, drinking and sleeping with Simon King with peace of mind. It can only be said that other people's ropes were tied, and his rope was used to hang himself. Ropes and ropes are the same, but people are a little different.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.